Hey everybody, it's Seth. I wanted to hop in before this episode starts to give a little bit of a warning. We had a little bit of connection issues and also some mic issues on our guest, Ryan's microphone. We did our best, and it does get much better around the 13-minute mark. So if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, this is pretty rough, just give it until about 13 minutes and it will get better. Okay, here's the episode.
Now it's time for Movie Friends with your hosts Michelle and Seth. We're talking film without pretension. We're finding cats that are unexpected. We'll watch a movie, film, or schmovie, and we want you to join our journey. So subscribe and share this podcast, or this might just be the last of the Movie Friends. We're movie friends. We want to be your movie friends.
Welcome to New Release Review, part of the Movie Friends podcast. My name is Seth. Today we are talking about 28 years later, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia Dacosta. Now, we will be discussing spoilers for this film and potentially every other film in the 28 years later saga. So if you haven't seen the film yet, please proceed with caution. My guest is returning. He has become the 28 guy. Ryan Ritter is back on the show. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing good. Who would have thought I'd become the 28 guy? I went from not really being a zombie movie fan really at all to just now. I feel like they're making a new one of these every 6 months, and then here I am.
I know. I would be okay with that. You know, my reactions to the last movie was a little underwhelmed. I have since come around on it. I'll say that. But, you know, sure. There used to be a new Three Stooges short, you know, every couple months, and there was a new Our Gain, and I'd be okay with returning to that frequency. But before we start talking about the film, I wanted to ask you if you could share with the audience about your blog and also about your show.
Yeah, well, I'll take it in that order. Yeah, I have a blog. It's called Critical Analysis with 2 T's, because what better way to name your project than in a way that's has unintuitive spelling that cannot be found. It's Critical Analysis with 2 T's, because Ritter, right? Critical.
Right.
Yeah, and I mostly talk about movies. I try to make things varied. I have kind of like an ongoing yearly check-in series. I'm going through like the movies of Steven Spielberg. 2 years ago, I did his 70s output. Last year, I did his 80s. I'll be doing his 90s stuff closer to the spring. But I also like to do some surprises. I've been working on something classic cartoon related that should be coming out in the coming days. So yeah, just kind of it keeps me stimulated, keeps me engaged, and it seems like people seem to like what I'm writing. So I'm just going along with that. So check that out, criticalanalysis.com. It should work either with a hyphen between the 2 words or not. But you need the 2 T's. I don't know what you're going to find if you don't put that second T in. I have a podcast I host with my friend Jimmy McShane, old high school friend of mine, where we're going through some of our favorite pop culture chronologically, and we've picked 2 very light, easy projects to start us off. We're going through classic Doctor Who in its entirety, and of course going through the superhero film genre chronologically. We're wrapping up our classic Doctor Who season 8 coverage here in the coming weeks. Actually, we'll be coming back from a hiatus, a Christmas-related hiatus. Sure. Probably by the time this is out, we'll be up, and we'll be finishing up season 8. Third Doctor, 70s, color, all available online. You're not watching old weird recreation stuff.
Nice.
And then we'll be digging into 2000s superhero movies, including such classics as Iron Man, The Dark Knight, and of course, my super ex-girlfriend. So check that out soon.
Very cool. Very cool. So, you joined me for 28 years later. And on that episode, I had asked you if you'd come back and do this one, and you very graciously said yes. So can you tell me about your initial reactions upon seeing 28 years later, The Bone Temple?
You know, my overwhelming thought about it, like my overriding thought when I think about this movie and this series is what a strange franchise this is. I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything quite like it, where you have this first installment. I would argue, I mean, I don't think anyone would push back to me calling it iconic. I mean, by first installment, I mean 28 days later. I keep wanting to call it 28 years later, the first one. It's not,
Right.
it's the third. And you have like a kind of a one-off sequel a few years later made by someone different. It's not Danny Boyle. And then a whole generation of children are born and raised and off into the working world. And then Danny Boyle comes back to make a third one and then immediately hands it off in a back-to-back sequel to someone else, which gives us the Bone Temple. I don't know if I can think of a franchise that is quite structured this way.
Right.
So yeah, it doesn't feel like a fourth installment. This kind of feels like a second installment, but also feels kind of almost standalone-ish. Yes, it's a very much a middle story. It picks up right where the last one left off, and it kind of makes a promise that something will happen at the end. It's just a very strange series of movies, but I like 28 years later, and I like this one maybe even more. That is my second thought on it. Yeah. I've reflected on that a little bit. I understand that it's I think its reaction's a little divisive. Nothing too contentious, but I think I've seen some people go, "This one is great. It's the best one." I've seen some people go, "It's kind of a step back," and I kind of understand why. It's kind of taking the same thematic thread of the last one. Like, here's these two styles of leadership, mentorship, or parenting. One is evil, one is good.
Right.
There's still zombie penis on display. That's not a new thing.
I was happy to see, that it was back.
Yeah, you can't get rid of that. It's now part of the whole thing. It's Cillian Murphy. It's like the red kind of like do not like that kind of toxic chemical sign, and then the zombie penis. But I think it just takes what I liked about the last one and just like almost makes it exclusively the content of this one. So I liked it, but possibly even more. Yeah, that's kind of, and we'll talk about what I mean by that as we go. But I'll just start with Dr. Kelson was my favorite character in the last one, and this movie's like half him. So fine with me.
Kelson definitely takes more of the forefront here. Spike really is he's very passive in that he really has no control. He's a lot less control than he had in the first one. In the first film, he is being fathered by his father, who has his own issues, and yet he's able to break away from that in order to accomplish this thing that he's trying to do, which is get his mother help. In this one, he really is forced into everything that happens. He's trying to figure out how to get away without being, tortured to death, essentially. And I'm curious how audiences will look at Spike's actions in terms of being forgiven for, do they understand the situation that this like child is in? Because he is a child. Anyway, that's an interesting facet of this to me, is Spike's inaction that leads to people dying. Anyway, I was just laughing to myself in the theater. I was like, okay, some of the times, when I heard that Nia Dacosta was going to be taking over, I was excited because I actually really liked her Marvel movie, The Marvels.
I think it's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
And there's a fantastic musical sequence in that film. There's actually two musical sequences in that film. One of them is less good than the other. The one that I'm thinking of, which I won't spoil for people, but it involves cats in space. I was like, this is so funny. I wish that more superhero movies just leaned into really stupid stuff like this, I think that the Marvel movies would be better suited if they were more like Men in Black. Like Men in Black was a fun couple of movies, because they didn't take themselves seriously and they had science fiction elements, and they were a science fiction movie, and they didn't feel weird about that. So Nia Dacosta directing that movie, I was like, this is great. I didn't realize that she had one more insanely weird musical sequence left in there. Ray Fiennes dancing around while Rio plays in his mind. I'm not saying I didn't like this movie, but I was very tickled at the fact that this kind of continues to be an odd series, like you said. I think that 28 years later could have set a template for the next movie to follow, and instead they did this with it, and I'm very entertained by that. I think that that's great.
I think I like non-intuitive sequels. I think sequels, it's baked into the very art of movie making, or at least the commoditization of movie making, where hey, we made a good movie, let's just do it again, and maybe we'll make more money. They've been doing that since the 1910s.
Yeah.
Shakespeare wrote sequels to his plays. I think it'd be really easy to just kind of follow, not the formula necessarily, but there's kind of like an idea of like what a 28 blank later movie is supposed to look and feel like. It's going to be gritty, maybe shot on video, or at least like not going to look particularly pretty. And there won't be any Duran Duran. That's pretty set up. So I kind of like that they handed it off, this kind of ambitious trilogy where they made the first two like back to back, and then maybe they'll make the third if this one makes enough money, which doesn't look like it's gonna. And then have this one set immediately after the first one, but feels so tonally different. I can't imagine actually watching these back to back.
Right.
I feel like, because they're just so different. And it's not like it's not a comedy. There's some very serious stuff in this, some really kind of brutal stuff in it, but it is kind of lighter on its feet than any of the other 28
Definitely.
years later movies. And that's just such a big swing to me. And I like when movies like this are willing to just make some choices that might alienate some of the audience it had. I don't think this is anything like too off base, like some other sequels that come to mind. But like, I think that, I could see some people who really love 28 Days Later, 28 years later, watching this and going, this is silly.
Right. Definitely. And that was really how I felt. I was like, I just am so in awe that this is what they made. Because like I said, you have a template, you have a genre, and they went a little sillier with it. And that, if you're listening to this and you think that me saying they went silly with it is a bad thing, to me, that's a great thing. I think that that's incredibly admirable. And it is an odd mix of brutality with, I'll stop saying silly, but brutality with softness. Maybe I'll say that. The opening scene is Spike and the Jimmies, and he has to fight one of them to the death. Later on in the film, they'll explain what this process is. Spike is obviously, he's like half this guy's size, but he stabs him in the artery. And then in what I imagine is close to real time, we watch a dude bleed out in front of us. And I was very uncomfortable. Like, I'm fine with blood, but there's something about when a person is like really pathetically begging for their life and help, that's very troubling to me, which I think it probably should be to all people. And I was like, oh, wow, this movie is going to be really tough.
I think a lot of the Jimmy and the Finger stuff kind of had that effect on me. I know it's there for a reason. Like, I'm always in a position where, like, if something makes me really profoundly uncomfortable, but like that's the point. I feel a little checkmated sometimes. So yeah, him bleeding out, like all this stuff with like the family and the farm was doing like their skin flayed off and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Like those were tough roads for me. And I know it's to set up the dichotomy between these kind of rebellious youngsters versus kind of like the more compassionate, like man of science who's trying to kind of create a cure, and we'll
Right.
talk about all that. But yeah, those scenes were a little bit rough for me. And in fact, it was in those scenes in the farm where next to us in the theater, we saw a dad and his three just shy of teenage sons walk out of the theater and not come back.
Oh,
Which
goodness
means they got through the
gracious.
leg bleeding out and the the Samson
Right.
genitals and stuff. But like this was
A
like
little
their
too
cutoff
much.
point apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't recommend these movies for younger people, partially
No.
because they are really terrifying. Like I remember watching 28 Days Later and just being scared witless. Like I was like, "Oh, wow." And I was, a teenager back then.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think that I think that maybe wait until your kids are, a little older.
Yeah, 16, 17, R-rated kind of
Right.
cutoff point.
So we're doing a lot of, like you said, a dichotomy, a comparison here between Jimmy, who is representing religious fanaticism, and Dr. Kelson, who is representing the scientific, but scientific sometimes can have a connotation of like being cold, and he's not. And
No.
I like that you have the science guy and you have the religious guy, and it's the religious guy who is extremely cold. He doesn't view anyone as people, he's flaying them alive. And then you have Kelson, who is scientific, and he sees what is a monster in Samson, but he's able to see past that and try to reach him with compassion. So I thought that was pretty good. I don't know how you want to approach this. Should we talk about Jimmy first? Should we talk about Kelson?
Yeah, we can talk about Jimmy first. I mean,
All right, take it
yeah.
away.
Well, Jack O'Connell having himself quite the year here. I mean,
Yeah.
Villain of Sinners, which is now the most nominated movie in
Of all
Oscars
time.
history.
Yep.
Which is nuts. And then he's kind of not kind of the star of the show here a little bit. He's teased a little bit at the end of 28 years later in this kind of post-credit scene that's before the credits, but functionally speaking, it's kind of a post-credit scene. Yeah, no, I mean, he does a very good job. The character makes me uncomfortable, which again is the point, and I didn't enjoy spending a lot of time with him. But it's played to perfection. I think Jack O'Connell does a really good job with it. I think something that I thought was a little odd was this whole this whole Jimmy Savile thing that the first 28 years later movie,
right,
kind of sets up and plays with is this kind of like Arrested Development. They really do move that metaphor, imagery, iconography, I don't know how you want to describe it. It really does, to their credit, fill it out to like its fullest. This idea of like, oh, like here's this this guy who's gonna like, for those who don't know Jimmy Savile's work,
right,
at least on screen, is a very beloved children's entertainer, kind of this national figure and this figure of trust. And then after he passed away, he turned out to be one of the world's, one of humanity's greatest monsters. Use that that power to his sick advantage. And there's kind of that with Jimmy here too. I mean, he's supposed to be very cool and like, oh yeah, we don't care about anything and like run with us and like you're gonna be part of the gang, you're gonna be protected. And it's like the worst thing that ever happened to Spike. It's like this very traumatizing experience underneath the surface. So I thought all that was really well thought out. But yeah, the coldness to it there is a limit to how much coldness I can take in a character, and someone who's like this unrepentingly bleak. I mean, it's satisfying. I wanted to see him get killed. I wanted to see him defeated, but like considering how the other half of the movie, how pleasant and humanist it was, this part of the movie is hard for me to engage with, and I'm stuck between that being the point and also just maybe hitting the limits of like what I enjoy. And that's, I'll consider that thought provoking and a point for the movie. But those are my honest feelings about this section.
Right. Yes, Jack O'Connell is great, really good. Though it was hard. Now listen, everyone has a different path in life and different access to different toothbrushes, but I, I was having such a hard time with his teeth, and I was just fixated like on that one tooth that was like just almost completely, you know, gray brown, and I was like, bro, like at a certain point you just got to pull that, you know? But beyond that, as I was watching, I was like, man, this is a very nuanced performance, because almost the whole time Jimmy is talking, it's funny, but it's very upsetting. Like the things that he's doing. And I just kept thinking about the people who he's with. Do any of them strike you as being older than 28 years old?
Not particularly.
Like maybe the woman who's with Spike.
Maybe, but I think she only seems older in comparison to Spike. I mean, I think
Right.
in actuality, I no, this feels like it's a very young feeling group, and I think that is intentional and significant.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Because I was like, how are these people so unaware that this is like not normal, and this is not how life should be, and this is not how you should treat other people? But then I thought about it, I was like, well, they were all born after this zombie event.
mhm.
And I love that at one point Jimmy calls them zombies, because
Right,
sometimes in zombie movies they refuse to say that, which
the
is so
undead or
stupid. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
infected.
Right. And then I was like, oh, they're all born into this world. Who knows how early Jimmy got a hold of some of them. And then you have this person who is making sense of a chaotic world. We don't have to look very far to see people who succumb to that type of leadership in our present day, when we're not overrun with zombies and
Right.
the world is, someone saying like, hey, look, just follow me and I can make sense of what is happening and what you're seeing, and
I will protect you, even if it
I'll
means you
protect
have to
you.
do something for me. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it's far fetched, but perhaps not that far. And then I loved the depiction of like religious ecstasy in the Iron Maiden sequence when they're given some type of hallucinogenic or psychedelic drug blown into their faces.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yeah, this is real, like this is happening, I'm like literally dancing with the devil. And if you or I were suddenly transported into a bone temple surrounded by fire with what we believe to be Satan dancing around, I think you and I would be like, oh, this is scary. But due to this lining up with their spiritual outlook on life, they're able to like experience that ecstasy that we would normally reserve for like a holy spiritual moment. Here it's fabricated Satanism. So anyway, uh, I thought it was all very interesting, and even now, just as I'm sitting here saying this to you, I feel like balancing how in like a whole movie of Jimmy and the Jimmies would maybe be too much. Like maybe that would be like, wow, how many times can we watch them like torture people over and over?
Yeah, I think as you're just, it's interesting as you were kind of describing, like maybe how like you're hypothesizing how this group could have come together. I realized that
Mm-hmm.
could have been a very interesting like supplementary material, like a book or like a series of stories or something like that. Like I'd be curious to know in universe how he found everybody. I think that could
Mm-hmm.
be interesting. But as a visual medium, yeah, a whole movie of people getting like chained up and like they're getting spears shoved down their chest. Yeah, that would be too
Mm-hmm.
much. I think even having it here, it borders on like we get the point, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I would change anything, but it does kind of border that line. And so that's why I'm kind of glad there's like this other thread throughout that really surprised me. And I can't say I've ever seen anything quite like it before. But yeah, I do like that it all kind of comes together. Like this, the streams kind of meet in this like really crazy musical dream esque sequence.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts. That is a wild swing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I couldn't believe it as it was happening. That was a great.
Yeah.
That was just an amazing sequence.
One of our patrons in our Discord last week or so made the statement that they think that musicals are the purest form of the cinematic art.
Ooh,
And, not to be an absolute in anything, but I do think that a musical is perfect for movie making because it's not real, because it's not in front of you. You're watching something on a screen that if you watch it live, if you watch someone just acting and then they burst into song, you're like, wait a minute. But on film, anything can happen. And so I think it's easier. But it's interesting that you have like a movie like Seven mixed with, you know, um, the nicest version of Frankenstein that we've ever seen. You said something like
but
just now you said we've never seen anything like it. And that's true because usually in a Frankenstein story, the doctor is evil and has evil intentions,
Mhm.
but this is like the nicest version of, okay, here I have this large hulking creature and yet I'm trying to bring it up to like another level. And of course, Kelson doesn't create Samson. We see Samson's backstory. We see Samson talk, but Kelson has no skin in the game beyond, an altruistic goal and science. But I don't think he's like, oh, I'm going to experiment on Samson and then I'll know how to cure everyone. I think that it's just in caring for Samson, he's figuring out how to cure people.
yeah, I think it felt very personal. I don't mean personal for him like this is like my long goal, but just like he just has this connection with this very scary. I mean, this was like the villain of the last movie, basically. This alpha, like
Mm-hmm.
very scary
Yep.
hulking figure.
Yep.
He can't help but like just see a shred of humanity and going, I need to pursue this. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that that is a very intriguing line to follow throughout the whole movie. And I'm really glad that it really does follow through the whole movie. Because I can see some versions of this where like they have this idea of like what if like we have a character kind of dancing around with like a zombie, like they kind of get
Mm-hmm.
stuck in that image and it's just kind of there to kind of do that and then they move off of it.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been valid, but I think the idea that like this whole idea of like can I bring back the human inside the zombie, which as stated, I'm not a zombie expert. I'm sure
Right.
people could list 10, 15, 20 movies from all across the world with that. They deal with this exact thing in the confines of a zombie movie. I'm just saying I hadn't seen that before, and it felt
Yeah.
very unique and moving. Actually, I found all of that very, very almost inspiring. um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this idea of like finding the humanity inside an enemy. That's
Yeah,
big.
absolutely. Absolutely. There's an interesting film from a couple years back called Fido about a society that went through a zombie apocalypse and came out on the other side. And now zombies are either pets or they're put into like extremely low skilled jobs.
That's
Like,
fantastic.
yeah. It's an I wouldn't recommend it necessarily, but it is an interesting meditation. I bring it up because to your point, there's been a lot of meditation on zombies, especially, The Walking Dead ran for who knows how many years. I don't even know how many spin-off shows there are at this point.
I think the universe is
And
still going. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But here, I think because these zombies are so fast, there hasn't been a ton of time to meditate on them.
No,
Because it's
not
like
at
they
all.
show up, they puke in your face, they rip you apart, they're run, there's no like, oh, look, there's a zombie, and it's like slowly shuffling. So there really hasn't been time to slow down and think and meditate with it. And that's what this movie does in Kelson. It slows down, and it's literally like these two dudes like doing drugs together, and then just like looking at the moon, or like looking out at the field,
It's
or
like a college dorm setting
yeah,
almost. Yeah.
yeah, talking to each other, and it becomes a hangout movie between Kelson and Samson. And it's I thought it was wonderful. I think I would not be surprised to find people don't like this one as much as the last one, because it's very out there. Kelson slowed down the story in the first one, but he was talking about the inherent value in all humanity, and the idea of dignity in death, and it's messy, but someone has to be the one to do it. That was maybe, I know for me when I watched it, I just wasn't expecting that. And so it felt like, what is happening in this movie? So going into the second one, I had the same feeling, but I feel like it's an even further departure from
Sure. Yeah.
but for some reason I took this one a little easier, I guess I would say. I don't know.
I think 28 years later does kind of set this one up nicely, because I think we're just used to maybe franchise movies not following big ideas so much, and just kind of giving them kind of like a little moment and then kind of leaving you to it. I know I'm kind of contradicting myself. I just said it'd be weird to kind of watch these back to back, just because the tonal shift is pretty significant. But if you follow that story of Kelson, I actually think it dovetails really nicely, one into the other. I had some sort of really great point and I lost it, unfortunately. Oh well, it'll come back.
Oh well, okay.
What did you think of you're kind of talking about looking at the moon and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And a moment of the movie kind of came back to me. How did you feel about Samson kind of having like this flashback to him as like a non-zombie, like little boy?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was really remarkable. But I could see some people going like, that feels saccharine, or kind of maybe like a cheap emotional moment. And kind of to your point of like, I could see some people not really enjoying this one as much.
Yeah.
Sometimes moments like that can kind of come off a certain way to some people, and I was wondering how you. It feels like I'm setting you up, but like, yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. I mean, I thought it was kind of heartbreaking, really. Like it raised more questions about the how. We see Samson as a pretty small child, and then we see him quite large, and it's like, what is he eating to bulk up?
It implies
we know what he's eating.
Of like zombie GNC stores, right? Or
right. But I really had to tell myself a few times, like, hey, this isn't that type of movie. And so for me, yeah, like I liked it. I thought it was good, and I liked how they showed Samson slowly coming back to himself. And it was going back to where he got infected, basically, that did the final connection for him mentally.
Which I think is really beautiful, right? I remember what it was, because he called this a meditation, which is true. And it struck me after like 3 movies of fast running zombies kind of killing people and puking in people's faces in like this almost like music video style of cinema. And I don't mean that pejoratively, but now we have a movie that does feel much slower than the ones that came before it. And I think that's significant, because I don't have the numbers right in front of me. But I am willing to bet this is probably the shortest of the 4 movies. I think it comes in at like right around 100 minutes. I think, again, that's another big swing in what is essentially a franchise sequel. It doesn't really feel like one, but I do think it's a movie coming in shorter than its predecessor, but also feeling very methodical and very purposeful. Again, I know that's happened before, but it's not really coming to mind at the moment. And there's not really a whole lot of zombies running around. Yeah, there are some scenes where like it feels like the good old days, but mostly the villains are these asshole the finger gang.
I was curious, like at a certain point, as Samson and Kelson are interacting, I was like, is this the whole movie? Like, are we going to see Jimmy and Spike? Like, are we going to see Jimmy and Spike at the very beginning and then maybe just like at the very end and that's it?
The thought crossed my mind too, or at least like, like what if they made like a series of like 28 years later presents like shorts or something? Like you could
Right.
see like a 28-minute version of just Kelson and Samson
Right.
smoking weed.
Right. But I liked that. I mean, I was curious. I mean, when Samson speaks, I don't know if it's halfway through the film,
Probably
I
just
was like,
about.
oh, like, wow. Like, I thought maybe we would do that at the very end or something.
Mhm.
So him speaking earlier on, I was like, yeah, like how far is this going to go? And my question for you, my next question is, Kelson dies, Jimmy dies, Samson is just out there. Does anyone know, like, is the cure for the zombies ever going to be widespread? Is that just, that was this part of the story and that's over now?
I mean, conventional storytelling might dictate that Samson will just kind of appear in the next one now that we're kind of combining the casts. Like, if this is truly the last one, he would be the impetus to maybe like ending the story. I don't know how that would work out. It kind of relies on coincidence, but whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, it hasn't been a conventional story yet in this franchise, so who knows? I mean,
Right.
I presume Samson will be in the next one. It seems like that would, it's not like Danny Boyle and Alex Garland did write the script to both this and
Right.
28 years later will presumably be writing. So there seems to be some cohesion there, but I don't know. I would imagine.
Right.
I kind of hope he does because he was one of my favorite parts of this movie, and I want to see him in the next one, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm so curious. Like I said, I'm trying really hard to not put on my, well, how does that work brain? Because Samson looks like he is infected, with wounds. What is his intestinal tract looking like? It's like, if you snap back into your right mind, physically, I mean, he might be the same physically because we see him being bitten on the train. So is Samson now like impervious to the virus because he's gone through it? I don't know.
And again, it's hard to tell if this is like intentional, like we just don't have that planned out and we're never going to know, or if that is an intentional thread to maybe be explored.
Right.
Be very curious to know how this next one turns out, if in fact it ever exists. I think it's been greenlit.
Yeah.
I think they're working on it, but I think it's also possible studio loses its nerve. But
right.
I'd be very curious to see how that turns out, because I'd like to know the answers to those things too, if in fact they're going to provide them.
Right. So we talked about it a little bit, but I wanted to ask you your thoughts on the big Iron Maiden Number of the Beast interpretive dance performance scene. How did you feel about that?
Well, I'll kind of start by making a point of something I think we've been kind of talking around. It's Ralph Fiennes now. I've heard Ray Fiennes in my life.
Ray Fiennes is how I've heard it, and that's usually what I go with.
Ray Fiennes feels more upscale, right?
Yeah.
He's terrific in this. I know he's been around pretty much our entire lives as like a presence in movies. I remember first seeing him in like Quiz Show, I think, when I was like a kid, and I was like, oh my God. But he kind of just pops up on all levels of movies. He's done the franchise shit before, Harry Potter and Oscar bait kind of stuff. I don't mean that in a bad way, but like stuff like Conclave, where you see that and go like, yep, this is gonna this is gonna rack up a lot of nominations. But the fact that he's willing to kind of be in like the part 3 or part 4 of like a zombie franchise and bring in like this really warm humanist performance, that's very vulnerable. I think he spends a lot of this with like with minimal clothes on and has iodine all over his all over his face and body, and is still
Yeah.
able to bring this like calm, assured performance. Is I don't know. I think that's a real testament to his abilities and his talent and his comfortability as a movie star. So all that to say, yes, the Iron Maiden sequence is very weird, and another just giant swing at the ball
Mm-hmm.
in a whole movie full with them. It very easily could have not worked. I could even see someone panicking during like a script read or a meeting and going like, "Are we sure?" like,
Right.
and I think because it's Ray Fiennes who was just going for it and who has gotten our trust through a movie and a half, that is why it works and it is thrilling instead of stupid, which it very easily could have been. And I think that's
Yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah, I can see so many other ways of doing it. I mean, you just simply sit on a little throne and they approach and you say, "Hi, I'm the devil," you know?
Some
So
flames fire
it's
up.
not like a scenario where it's like, "Oh no, we put Jackie Chan on the top of a 100-story building that's on fire. We got to get him out." You know, and it's like, well, he just takes the elevator, right? Like, it's not that type of thing. Where it's like, no, he has to, you know, jump from one building or another, or he
Right.
has to slide down the whole side of the building. This is quite literally a performance that Kelson is putting on that he has time to prepare for. And so he could have done this 50. What'd you say?
He said he chose to put on a show.
Right. And so because of that, again, you said, you know, you can see someone reading the script and kind of panicking. Filmmakers would say, okay, well, what about this? What about this? What if we did it this way? What if we did it this way? What if we did it this way? Even down to the day, you know, like you're figuring it out. Okay, where are we putting the camera? Ray Fiennes, how are you doing the worm on this big stone table? You know, and I love that through all of those decision trees, we ended up with what we ended up with. And it's like, it's such a confident statement that I have to applaud it. I think it is stupid. Like I think you were being nice and saying like it could have been dumb. I think it is really dumb. But
Kelson turns into like a theater kid at the big climax, you know? Like,
I know. And I think that's maybe the only. I think maybe that's the biggest departure from the last one to this one is
easily.
Now suddenly he's really into music and he has all these records and he's singing Rio, where in the first one he seemed a little more like, I read Latin, you know?
That's fair.
Yeah.
And
you're right. I'm not complaining too much, but
it's notable.
I like Iron Maiden. I like a lot of Iron Maiden hits, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very exciting for me to see Ray Fiennes not only doing this dance, but also like singing along to the Number of the Beast. I was happy that they included, there's a little like preamble that plays before the song plays, and you got a little bit of that. So I liked it, but again, I was just like laughing in my, not obnoxiously, but I was like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. And I didn't see this for about a week after, until like a week after it came out. And after it came out, someone had shared just the poster, which is, you know, him in that scene. And they said something like, if I told you what was happening in this scene and why it was happening, you wouldn't believe me. And I was like, you know what? Pretty much. Yeah. And yeah, like Kelson kind of becomes like a theater kid. And then he's like, yeah, to save my own skin, I'm going to tell these people to go out and kill more people. And it's not until he sees Spike that he kind of rescinds that. That also seemed like, wow, that's a pretty intense change here from what we know about Kelson. Because obviously, you know, with doctors, their first thing is do no harm.
Sure.
And now they're here being like, yeah, go out and mutilate people.
Yeah. do harm.
Yeah, really a lot of harm, actually. But I liked his little twist there of being like, yeah, we are the inversion of the Christian church, and so as my only son, you have to be crucified upside down, and then you'll raise again. And they're like, yeah, cool.
And that was very satisfying. I gotta
Mhm.
say, kind of tying back to the first part of the other half of this movie. It's not often you see someone crucified and you're like, this is satisfying, but it
Right,
was for
right,
me.
right,
He fully deserved it.
right. Yeah. So Kelson is stabbed. Jimmy is stabbed. Everyone's stabbed, and these two fathers. There, there's a philosophical point that I quote a lot, and I don't fully know it, but I believe it's Nietzsche, and I think I said it in our last episode about this idea that for society to progress to fullness, it has to kill its father. God is society's father, and so we need to kill this idea of God, and we need to kill this idea of a father in order to become a man, right? And
Sure.
to reach our full potential as a person.
Sounds
This
neat.
idea, has to die, right? And that's fully on display in the Bone Temple, where you have these two father figures, one really good and one really bad, and ultimately it's Spike who runs away with a lady, and it's and even in that there's one good, one bad, one younger, one older, but the father is kind of left behind, this idea of the father. And then we get another father in
Welcome back to the chat,
yeah,
Cillian Murphy. I was
Cillian
just gonna
Murphy.
say,
Yeah. So how did you feel about that? This is the proper ending and also the setup for the next movie.
mixed feelings on it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as someone who had, because of 28 years later, had kind of re-engaged with the first movie for the first time in like at least a decade, probably decade plus. There is sort of just like I can try to think of the right word to say it, like not animalistic. There's almost like this visceral thrill of just like guy from the first one back, yay! And like
Right.
I had that reaction of just like, because it'd been long rumored. I remember there was like a rumor that maybe
Right.
Cillian Murphy is one of the emaciated zombies in
Right.
Terminator, which is like, I'd be insulted if I were Cillian Murphy and that was a rumor going around. It's like, you
I
think that
know.
looks
I know. I kind of felt bad.
But no, he's here. It seems to be properly well fed, not zombified. So that was cool. But there is this question of like, again, in this post-credit scene world that Hollywood is now in, this kind of Marvelization of things. I like Marvel. I'm not saying
Sure.
but that's just kind of that it popularized this concept that had been around before it, and now it feels like everyone's kind of doing it. Even the aforementioned Sinners
Right.
had a couple, and I can't tell if it kind of undermines its own philosophical point by making this big deal about killing off all these father figures, and then here comes a literal father, more of a father than the last two, who,
Right.
as I recall, do not have any.
Who also appears to be really great.
Yeah, look, I am very excited to see all the streams cross, but you do kind of wonder if maybe this kind of sequel. I personally feel like it was there to kind of tempt the studio to let them make
Right.
the last one. So it's like, this is what it could look like, and recent Oscar winner would be back, and
Right.
I think that might end up saving the day. But you do wonder if it'd be a more complete movie if it ends with Spike and the female Jimmy just running off into the woods. Right. That's kind of where I'm at with it. What about you?
I mean, it's another big tone shift, especially from what we just had. We end on Jimmy crucified upside down and then a zombie coming to kill him. I think that that's a good ending right there. I think that just watching Spike and Jimmy, tattooed Jimmy, I don't know what to call her, walk off into the sunset, I think that's another one. But I like Cillian Murphy, so I was like, okay, I'm interested to see him always, but I don't know that I need to necessarily see Jim. I think that's his character, Jim, in
I think
28.
so.
Yeah. I don't necessarily need to see him. So I'm kind of ending the Bone Temple the same way that I ended 28 years later, which is like, okay, you're telling me where it's going next, and I'm not like fully in, but what can I do but throw my hands up and wait for the next one? So,
Sure.
yeah.
I mean, I did find it probably more exciting than the 28 years later kind of tag with Jack O'Connell's reveal was satisfying in the sense of like it actually connects the first scene that we hadn't heard anything about. But like I didn't quite know what to make of it beyond that. I thought it was cool, but it wasn't like this like now I'm ready for the next one because
Right.
I couldn't figure the characters out. So here it's at least more of like a hey, here's what it is, here's what's going to evoke. So it was I am ready for the next one. I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to succumb to like, got to wrap everything up and put the franchise all together in a nice little bow.
Right.
Titus. But maybe it'll be another big swing. Danny Boyle has been known to make them. So,
right. Do you have any other thoughts on the movie?
I like that the Alpha now has, I mean, if we call him Samson, which of course is a name that he got given in this movie.
Right.
I think he's just known as the Alpha throughout the last one. I think that's a better name for him. I think I like giving monsters like proper names. Other than that, no, I think we've covered it.
All right.
How did the audience feel about your movies? Ours was pretty quiet throughout.
I was only in it with one group of friends, 4 people. They laughed when you would expect someone to laugh. And then it ended and they were like dead silent. And I sat there for a little bit because I was kind of like, I wonder if they'll start talking. And I kind of want to hear what they think. But they sat there silently for so long that I was like, I'm just leaving. I got to go. Quick shout out to Jemima, who's the Jimmy who's taken out by the giant hook to the head. I really liked her line when she's killing the poor farm guy, where she says, you picked me because you thought I'd be weaker. And then she gives a look and a grunt that I was like, oh, that's such good acting. But yeah, I liked her throughout. Yeah, good movie, I will say. And I'll see the next one. So what else can you really say?
Yeah, and it's too bad it kind of got dumped in January. It felt like it could have been in the spring. Maybe not a summer movie, but
I don't know. I think every year someone is vying to be the king of January. You know what I mean? Like someone's got to be the best in the box office.
Kingdom's there for the taking.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if I were a filmmaker, if I was making Iron Man 4, I'd be like, yeah, we're debuting January 1st. And we're going to be number 1 at the box office for 4 weeks in a row. So that's what I would do. Ryan, where can people find you online? I know you talked about your shows earlier, but where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram mostly at this point at the real Ryan Ritter. So if you see any substitutes or any duplicates, just say no. The real Ryan Ritter is what you want. Yeah, I think that's the best place to find me. I roam around x.com still. I think I'm under the real Ritter there as well, but I'm not as active on there as I used to be. So yeah, those 2 places are pretty good. And yeah, subscribe to the podcast. Which I don't think I ever said the name of the podcast. I said I had a podcast. I don't think I ever said the name of it. The advertising mastermind strikes again. It's called Pop Culture Historians, and you can find them on you can find us on Instagram as well at Pop Culture Historians Podcast.
Well, hey, we would love it if you give us a rating and review wherever you are listening. You can also send us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about 28 years later, The Bone Temple. What did we miss? Probably a lot, to be honest with you. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? I don't know, but you do. And you can only let me know by sending us an email, moviefriendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also support the show, patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. $5 a month gets you access to all of our additional episodes, ad-free episodes, our Patreon-only Discord. You get to vote on upcoming episodes and monthly themes, a bunch of stuff. I'll let you figure it out. All right. Patreon.com.
That's a good deal.
Patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. All right, Ryan, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming back. Are you going to come back for the last one?
Yeah, I don't think there's a date on the books yet for it, but if and when, I'll be there. Seth, always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on again, and we'll see what the future. Maybe 28 years before the next one gets made, but
that'd be really funny, actually.
Very good.
All right. Well, hey, thanks, Ryan, and thank you so much for listening. Till next time, have a good one.
Movie Friends is produced by Seth Vargas and Michelle Rubenstein. Theme music by Jean-Marie Vargas. Visit us at our website, moviefriendspodcast.com, and please subscribe and rate our show wherever you are listening. You can support Movie Friends at patreon.com/moviefriendspodcast. Thanks for listening.